Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode. You guys, it has been quite a week, and on Friday's episode, I will tell you all about the shenanigans I have been getting myself into here as I am living on the verge. And honestly, some of these moments have had me on the verge. But today, I am going to talk to you about the final episode of 90 Day Fiancé's Hunt for Love. We'll get caught up with Real House Post Polygraph, and we will talk Real Housewives of Miami and Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Cruise from Miami to Miami. That's all coming up on this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. A couple of audio issues in the beginning. Bear with us. Let's dive into 90 Day Fiancé Hunt for Love. This is the tell-all part 2. And let's just wrap it up with how everybody ended up. Let's start with Jennifer. Well, we know she's mad at Cole for going to Elisa's room. She tells us she's in love with Cole, but yet she's dodging questions about Rob. And she ends up walking off when she's asked directly if she and Rob hooked up. Then she ghosts Cole, and she tells producers that she's sick so she can't come back onto the set. We finally see what really happened. The film shows Rob and Jen having hooked up. And then Rob tells Cole that it happened 3 times. And Cole tells us that Jennifer is still lying to him. Everybody, especially Rob, thinks that Jennifer should have stayed to defend herself. Wow. Let's see what's going to happen. Let's move on to Cole. Cole is finding out in real time that Jen hooked up with Rob, and it's not going well. He's embarrassed, and he says he is not going forward with the K-1 visa process, and he says that Jen's behavior is relationship ending. So where do we think this stands today? You guys, they're still together. As of early September, they are still together. Of course, she did her magic once she got him off screen, I am sure, and convinced him in some way, shape, or form that they are amazing together. I don't know how long this one will hold out, but that's where we're at with this one. Let's talk about Colty. Good old Colt has been coined the vagina whisperer, and he has all the one-liners. He says he got the girl, and he's not wrong about that. He's the one with the last laugh. Well, unless we're talking about his tallywhacker, in which case, apparently, Courtney has been telling everyone who will listen that she was concerned that he might have had a micropenis. Well, spoiler alert, it turns out he's a grower, not a shower. So, eventually, everything turns out fine. But let's figure out what Courtney thought. Well, before we talk about Courtney, I'm going to outfit shame. I did not really realize that stockings / nylons / pantyhose are back in style, but I am seeing them more and more. And I love a good stocking and what it does to a leg, so I'm not mad at it. But this girl is wearing yellow leotards that clash with her gold dress. I'm curious if in person these look gold and shimmery, and on camera they come across as, I don't know, nude tone leotards. Anyway, it wasn't a good look. So even though I'm not one to normally outfit shame people, this one needed some mentioning because it bothered me the entire time, especially with those black pumps with the red bottoms that weren't really red bottoms, that are just some black clunky pumps. Not a good look. Courtney, let's just say our fashion sense and our tastes are very different than one another's. Yeah. I don't know how to get myself out of this except to go on to tell you that she tells us that things with Colt are very good, and they are both happy to head back home to Florida, where they are still living together, to have some of Courtney's mama's cooking. So, yep, those two are still together, and let's move right on along to Chantel. Things are juicy in Chantel Town. Ashley shows up, and so does Karen. And Mama Karen is always larger than life. She comes in handing Ashley and Courtney lollipops because they're both suckers. And then she's really mad because I guess all of the drama between Karen and Ashley occurred at Winter's wedding. Winter is Chantel's sister. And it had something to do with cleaning up after the wedding and Mama Karen feeling disrespected by Ashley. But this woman comes in with guns blaring, and it's just not cool. It's not a good look. But then again, if you know Karen, you know that you could expect nothing less. And at one point, Chantel starts crying because she tells us that she's having some trouble with some members of the family accepting what she is trying to do and the fact that she is in a committed romantic relationship with Ashley and they're living together. And she tells Mama Karen that, and Mama Karen says that if they got married, she would go to the wedding. She tells us later on that she's just concerned that this might be another Pedro. But as of now, Ashley and Chantel are happily together. Let's move on to Usman. Well, we know he left alone. And at the last, segment of this episode, he does eventually take responsibility for not making an effort with Courtney. And then we see Kimberly, who joins us for just a moment and tells us that they are friends. And then she tells Courtney that even though she thinks she's a beautiful woman, she feels that she did lead Usman on and that she should have just told him that she wasn't interested. But then reads Usman on the fact that he does play a lot of games. And is Usman a sugar baby? I don't know. He tells us that if he were still with Courtney, he probably would have proposed to her by now. Are you serious? Even Courtney calls bullshit on that. And so Usman tells everyone that is watching this tell-all that he is getting married this year. Well, Usman, it is September of 2025. Time's a ticking, my friend. I scoured the internet high and low to see if you were in any sort of a relationship, if there was any, I don't know, record of you dating anyone, or maybe an engagement or a wedding planner had been hired. Well, he's single, y'all. Still nothing for Usman in Loveland, so he better get to work if he's going to be married in 2025. Let's move on to Tiffany. Tiffany is my girl, and we heard in Tell All Part 1 that she is madly in love with her new man, and she has a lot to say about a lot in this episode. She tells Cole to be careful. She doesn't think Jen is a good person, and by about halfway through the episode, she flat out says that she does not like Jen at all. So if we had to guess how she felt, we don't anymore. Tiffany, no like Jen. We got that, Tiffany. What else do you have to tell us? Well, we know she and Tim are very, very close. And we know that as of the taping of this podcast episode, she and her new man are still in a relationship and still very much in love. Good for you, Tiffany. Well, let's move on to Rob. What happens with Rob? Well, he is currently dating with boundaries. He tells us that Sophie and he were still hooking up, but it's because it's hard to be married and just break up and kind of put an end to that part of the relationship. But that eventually he had to stop it because then Sophie started to have expectations, and that's not what he wants to do. And when asked about Sophie, he tells everybody that he heard that Sophie is talking to none other than Chantel's ex-husband, Pedro. I don't know, you guys. We'll see what happens with that. Rob said he just wanted to hang out with Elise and not have sex that night that he invited her back to his room at 11:30 or 3:30, depends on who you ask. Nobody else believes it, and neither do I. You do not invite a woman back to your room after you have been hot and heavy making out to, chit chat and play Mario Brothers. We didn't believe it when you told us that's what you were doing with Jennifer, and we don't believe it when you tell us that that's what you had in mind with Elise. But nonetheless, you guys went on a date. You and Jennifer finally went on a date, and then we saw the show. She ended up with Cole that night. So she was definitely playing you. And then at the end of the day, when asked, Rob tells us he has no regrets, that he was happy he did everything he did, that he is currently single and dating, and whatever happens, happens. So I think that Rob really kind of has had to go through the ringer between all of the, gossip, between all of the rumors that he was gay, and that he had sex with men, or that there was, tape allegedly of this. I mean, it seems like a lot of that has been put to bed, and he is being left alone to be single and date. So I wish him all the best. And I want to move right along to Tim. Now, I said this before, Tim comes with a lot of controversy, and this is no exception. He is an acquired taste by his own admission, but he is a really good guy. And it turns out that things did not work out with him and Elise. He seemed really excited about it. We don't really get a lot of information on what's going on there and why it didn't work out, but we hear Elise tell us that it did not work out and they ended up never going on the date. So, according to everything I could find on the interweb, Tim is still single. He's available, ladies, if you're into his, quirky way of being and his lifestyle and attitude and, I guess, unapologetic honesty, then this guy might be for you. And let's end it all with Elise. Elise, to me, was the breakout star of this series. No one had ever heard about her before this show. And now when you Google Elise 90 Day, it comes right up, just like Googling Tim 90 Day or Usman 90 Day. So this girl really broke out. And even though, spoiler alert, she is single, things didn't work out with Rob. Things didn't work out with Carlo. Things didn't work out with Cole. There seemed to be a little bit of a spark there, but I guess Jennifer put the kibosh on that when filming ended, and she and Cole ended up still being together. But, it was really sad because at the end of all of this, she was just on the show like everyone else. And at the end, she is crying pretty incessantly in Courtney's arms, feeling like she was portrayed to be, in her words, a whore. And Courtney is reassuring her that that's not the case, that this show is what it was supposed to be, a hunt for love. Everybody was in Tulum to hang out, meet people, and hook up if that's what it took to find who you were looking for. And even though she didn't find love, I think she found that she has a new circle of friends and that she's not as misunderstood as she was in the beginning. And that even though she did come across really thirsty, part of it was the edit. If you really pick apart how the rest of the cast treats Elise, it's pretty apparent that this girl has a lot of charm and a lot of lovability. So I'm not going to drag her. I am going to end this segment and therefore the 90 Days Hunt for Love series that I really enjoyed, saying that Elise was one of the breakout stars in my opinion. And then we have Cole, although he's kind of, I don't think he's an antagonist all the way, but he's definitely the guy you kind of love to hate, because everybody seemed to silently be rooting for Rob and Jen to end up together. But in my opinion, Rob ended up the winner. Anybody who does not end up with Jen is a winner. So Cole, work it out. Carlo, I'm glad that you got read the way you got read. I have no idea why you ended up being a part of the plot to begin with. And Chantel is another winner. She found her Ashley, even though Ashley was nowhere near the island at Tulum at all until, well, I guess virtually she was. But you know what I mean? Chantel, you are a winner if you found love. Congratulations, girl. And I thought we were all winners. This was a really cute show. I don't know if we need to see more seasons of it. And in fact, the latest word on the street is that it was indeed canceled and there will not be a season 2 of Hunt for Love. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this show. I did. And let's move right on along. It's time to talk Orange County. This week's episode was kind of, I would say, filler-esque. We did have some advancing in the storyline, but for the most part, it was a lot of fluff. There was a lot of resolution, but then again, that's what we need, right, to move the storyline along. Because at the end of this episode, we get the mid-season trailer, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But for now, Emily and Gretchen are hanging out a lot. And in fact, in this episode, they go get testosterone implants, rice-size implants sewn into your butt cheek that release testosterone and apparently change your life if you are 40 and above when it comes to energy, sexuality and sensuality, exercise, stamina, all good things. And so the two go and they're supposed to take it easy for a couple of days because I guess there's a stitch that is involved once the implant goes in. And then we see that we don't think we're going to hear any more from Katie, but she and Jen meet. And they're discussing the whole polygraph and what happened. And Katie says she was set up. She brings a folder with, uncategorical evidence that this man is a actor and so was his assistant. And it turns out that these are polygraph examiners that are sanctioned, I guess, to go on these shows. They've been cleared, they've had background, and as such, how legitimate the test is neither here nor there at this point. How hard Katie is protesting is what concerns me. But she says that she's going to die on it. And Jen says she's questioning the friendship. And eventually, Katie tells Jen to just leave. So she does. And she says to the audience that she can't believe that Katie just lied to us the whole entire time. Let's move on and we'll wrap it up when it comes to my thoughts on what's going on with Katie at the end. Because we now know, you guys might remember that Gina's her only husband so far, her ex-husband, Matt, who is currently married to Britt. And as an aside, Britt and Gina have an amazing co-parenting relationship and a friendship of their own. They're constantly doing TikToks together. And I guess some people think it's weird. I think it's pretty endearing because it's really hard to have, families that are mixed and blended and remarried. And when it goes smoothly and the players involved get along, what a blessing, right? Anyhow, Gina goes to bring Matt a care package after his heart attack, and it really shows that their relationship is a good one, considering everything that they went through. And according to the internet, I guess they forgot what Matt looked like because the internet is ablaze with how handsome Gina's ex-husband is. And I don't know. I thought you guys all knew what he looked like already. But thank goodness for Britt, who saved his life, because honestly, what a horrible thing to have to tell your children at such a young age that their father passed away from a heart attack. So the good news is Matt is apparently taking care of himself. That still holds true till now. And everything is all good. He's changed his lifestyle, etc. Let's move on to Tamra and Jen meeting with Heather to have some sort of a meal that they never really had. And the purpose, I guess, is for Tamra and Jen to have resolution. And it does happen. They hug and they make up, and Heather documents the moment and, flippantly jokes how long this will be before it goes south. And I agree. I don't think it'll last long. But what I noticed more than anything, aside from the fact that these two just wanted to squash the beef, is that Jen has really kind of grown up on this show. She gets a lot of, teasing and taunting about not being the brightest bulb in the box. And I will go on record as saying that I'm probably guilty of that too from time to time when it comes to Jen. But I want to take a moment to acknowledge her growth, because she has really grown up on this show from someone who kind of just wants to fit in and does whatever she needs to, get in to fit in kind of thing, to someone who really does speak her mind, her opinion, and is not afraid to correct Tamra when she's saying something that she doesn't agree with, or, point out what she needs in order for the relationship to continue to mend. And she tells us that it's just one step. So we know that this is probably not done yet. But then they go to Emily, Gina, and Shannon, and they have a very short scene. And I think the main purpose of this scene was for Emily to be able to get across to us and to her friends the frustration and the darkness that she is going through when it comes to dealing with Luke, who makes a phone call during the episode and this scene in particular. And she tells us he's regressed and he's talking like a baby again, and we get to hear it for ourselves firsthand. And the takeaway from this is that they're struggling in their marriage because they're so overwhelmed by what is going on with Luke, or at least Emily is. Let's let Emily speak for Emily and Shane speak for Shane, that she feels that they're struggling in their marriage. So that's kind of sad. And then we see that weird scene where Katie and Matt are sitting on the couch and they're talking about, I guess, what happened at the lunch with Jen. And she's explaining that she is most hurt with Jen because her and Ryan were there and heard everything. And Matt agreed. He said he was there and he doesn't understand it either. And he comes and shows the receipts with the camera over his shoulder and a series of text messages from Slade on March 9th and March 10th, which were the dates right after Mastro's, in which Matt contends that he was trying to silence Katie. So I don't know. You be the judge of what you think. Are you team Katie? Are you team Jen? This one's a hard one, but the relationship is fractured nonetheless. So she being Katie, was not invited to Jen's beach day. And we're going to call this ballin' on a budget without the ballin'. The table was set up really cute. I thought that was lovely, with the flowers and the colorful pillows, and that was neat. But they sat down, and I guess they were supposed to have orange juice. I didn't see any champagne, but there were some red Solo cups. So who knows what was in there? Probably the champs. And then they all unveiled this little box, which contained a itty bitty croissant. And when confronted, Jennifer says, "What do you guys want from me? I'm on a budget." I thought that was very endearing and very cute. So they had a game of volleyball, and I thought it was interesting that Gretchen said that she was told in no uncertain terms by the doctor that she could not exercise for 5 days. while Emily jumped right into the game of volleyball, and she was at the doctor on the very same day that Gretchen was in. Heather, on the other hand, is toting an umbrella and being the sideline referee. That's what she normally does. No surprise there. And Shannon, you got to love Shannon. She always jumps in and tries. We should have had a counter of how many falls she had during the one scene of volleyball, because I'm pretty sure it was probably at least 5. I didn't count. And then it turns out, after they're all talking about what's going on, they're doing, Feel Good Friday, or, let's have a positive moment Friday. And they go around and everybody says something. And Heather starts it off with saying that her daughter Kat got accepted into Yale. Congratulations, Kat. She's there now. We saw that happening. And anyway, it ends up going a little sad in that Shannon tells us that Sophie got broken up with, but she's in town to, I guess, commiserate with Mama for a while, and she's going to join the ladies at the beach. And so we then move over to Tam and Gretch. Are they going to have a conversation? Are Tamra and Gretchen going to make up? Okay, spoiler alert, if you have not watched this episode, there is skipping involved. I think the whole thing is a bunch of BS, if you ask me. I mean, these are apologies that go back a decade, almost 2 decades, that are still being required. The girls go off and they talk in the corner, and Gretchen really wants Tamra to accept some responsibility and show some remorse for all of the things that she said all those years ago. And Tamra points out that she apologized to Slade directly. The screen says that was in 2012, you guys, 13 years ago. So I don't know, maybe Gretchen's having a little bit of trouble letting go. And she does not forget to mention that she's bothered about the fact that Tamra showed up with Joe. Tamra blows it off, but guess what? They're doing an after show this season, and I watched the episode where Tamra just kind of chuckles when she's confronted by the girls about being a little bit shady and showing up with Joe. And she said that that wasn't her intent. But she also says it wasn't not her intent either. Oh, Tamra, you're being messy, girl. That's why you're the longest running housewife, I guess. Who knows? They go back and forth a little, and then Tamra pulls her chair closer to Gretchen, grabs her hands, and kind of just says, look, like, I want to move on. So to me, it seems like nothing really gets resolved, but they do agree to move forward. And to mess with the girls a little, they skip back kind of arm in arm. And the girls are heard saying things like, hell's frozen over, pigs are flying. And then Sophie shows up, and in order to cheer her up, the girls decide to go around the table and tell Sophie their very worst breakup story. And some of the stories are kind of funny. Some of them are, kind of silly. So it got me to thinking what my worst breakup story was. And I'm going to tell you my worst breakup story, but I'm also going to put the question on Instagram, and I'd love to hear you guys chime in with your replies. So go to my Instagram at Living on the Virg Podcast and answer the question about your worst breakup story. So mine is going to have a fake name. I'm going to call my ex-boyfriend Mike. I was in high school, and I had gone with Mike to the Christmas ball, and we had had a great time. I thought I was head over heels in love. This was a guy who came from Cantwell High School, who was the boys' school down the street from my high school, which was Sure High School. Go Spartans. And everything was going well. Christmas ball had come. It was a 9th grade kind of love. So hot, heavy, and burning out fast. Well, that's what happened. We were supposed to go to, I think it was like the spring ball, or it might have even been, oh no, you guys, it was Sadie Hawkins. And yeah, I have the pictures to prove it, because I ended up going to Sadie Hawkins with my cousin Henry. Shout out to my cousin Henry. I love you. And with another girl named Suzanne, who for whatever reason latched onto our group for a couple of semesters and was never to be heard from again. But oh my gosh, and those Sadie Hawkins pictures were atrocious. Anyway, I was supposed to go with Mike to Sadie Hawkins, and lo and behold, he just never showed up. He didn't show up the night of the dance, and I knew that it was done. Eventually, I flushed him out, and he was cowardly enough to say that he didn't know how to break up with me, so he knew that if he didn't show up for the dance, that I would for sure get the message. What an asshole. You guys, that's what kids do to other kids in high school, and honestly, I don't know where Mike is today, but I'm willing to bet he is still a grade A asshole. So that's my breakup story. I'd love to hear you chime in with yours on Instagram. And if they're really good, you might hear it on the podcast. So that's it for the Real Housewives of Orange County. We did get the mid-season trailer, and we know that they're going to be going to Amsterdam. We saw glimpses of wineries, threats of bridal showers. Of course, there's going to be a lot of drama. I saw a couple of scenes where they show the boot scooting event that I was at, that I saw filmed. And guess what? In all of this, no sign of Katie. However, the masses tend to be Team Katie. Whose side are you on in all of this? Do you think Katie has been wronged? I don't know. I heard her on Nick Vial's podcast. It didn't change my mind. Listen, I want whatever is best for the franchise and whatever's going to make a good episode. And the fact that Jen and Gretchen were tight as thieves at the boot scooting event that I was at, and same could be said of Slade and Ryan, it gives it away to me. I think that Katie is pretty much done for the rest of the season, but to be determined. She says that if she has anything to say about it, she will be back for another season. So if she is not back, it is not because she did not want to come back. The question is, what happens next? Will she be at the reunion? Most people are telling her, including my friend David Yontef, who just interviewed on the podcast. And listen, that podcast is doing really great. If you haven't listened, go back and listen to that episode. We talk a lot of Bravo. And anyway, he thinks Katie shouldn't show up to the reunion. And I'm with David on this. I think that she looks fabulous as things stand right now. And that at the end of the day, the rest of the cast is going to seal their own fate, and people will be wanting more Katie. So that's my take on where we are with the Real Housewives of Orange County. Let's see what happens. We'll be here to cover it. It's season 7, episode 14 of the Real Housewives of Miami. Let's get into it. They are going on Sir Richard Branson's cruise ship, and everyone is worried that after Seville, there is going to be drama. But alas, Stephanie announces that she will be debuting Nautical Stephanie, who is unbothered. And that is a good thing, because we know that, things could go rough in Stephland. Julia is making slow progress with her daughter, she tells us. And Kiki and her dad meet for Chusi, LOL, sushi. He has a little bit of a hard time saying it, but he maintains that she is where she is because of her path. When Kiki wants to talk about, what happened and how she got thrown out of the house by her stepmom at age 14 or 15, I think it was. So, the relationship is moving forward, but it still has its little hiccups, for lack of a better word. awkward. That's the first word that comes to mind when I think about that scene in the bedroom with Jody and Lisa, where she's turning her hand upside down and talking about how her hand feels empty. And anyway, I'm not in a rush to get married, she says. And then in confessionals, Jody spills all the tea about how they're fighting so much that some nights they don't even sleep together. What the hell? Well, I ask you again, should you text your friend's partner? I don't know. I think the circumstances do depend, but in this case, my thought is probably not. Whenever there is an issue, err on the side of caution, man. And Anastasia of Beverly Hills shows up to, I don't know, give Stephanie street cred, talk business. Okay, they're badass bitches. I'll give you that. But I don't know, other than talking about makeup and freezing eggs, I have no idea why we even had this scene. So this is why I'm going to say it. It feels like a filler episode. And it's time to board the Virgin Voyage. No offense, you guys, but this cruise ship looks kind of tacky. I don't know much about the Virgin brand. I know the red is a thing, but maybe it's more of a fun ship than of a 5-star cruise ship. I don't know. But what sticks with me is that it starts and ends in Miami. So for the size of the ship, what in the heck? It goes nowhere. That's what happens. So can you tell me then why we hear horns a few minutes later as if it is taking off? Adriana, something's going on with her. She seems really depressed, and Gertie thinks it's her upcoming birthday. It's the big 6-0, and Adriana starts to talk to us about ageism, and even though Gertie tries to make her feel better, she tells us, and Gertie on the spot, but then she also tells us in confessionals that she just feels devaluated as a woman, and it's really hard. And so the girls all retreat to the rock star suite, and there's food and chat, and the rock star suite is cool, albeit a little rock starish and not really my taste. I'll just leave it there. But once they sit down and have a couple of drinks and eat some food, Marisol announces that she's going to split the groups up for the night. She says it's so that things could be cleared up, but at the end of the day, we all know it's because she doesn't want any bullshit between the girls that are beefing, namely Larsa and Lisa. Really seems to be the big one. Alexia's beefing a little bit with Stephanie, so let's keep those two apart too. And so this is how it breaks up. Group 1 is Alexia, Lisa, Marisol, Adriana, and Julia. And group 2 is Stephanie, Larsa, Gertie, and Kiki. So Kiki says that she's going to have to put her Bigo therapy panties on. Okay, I know I'm terrible at impressions. Don't come at me. But I thought the Bigo therapy was really funny. I'm going to move on because I am actually not making myself look much better at the moment. Anyway, it turned out that in order for Lisa to move forward, she wants to know that Jody gets left out of it and that there's no egos and that there's understanding. Meanwhile, back at Stephanie's group, Stephanie, in my opinion, showed us some growth. She says she's willing to listen to constructive criticism. And you know what? Gertie is right when she tells us that Stephanie is being demure and mindful. Remember that? That was the saying back when they were taping. I'm pretty sure it's not a thing anymore. Okay, well, 2 hours and 5 shots later, and Pips, aka Larsa, is flashing Alexia, Marisol, and a very, very happy Julia. And the girls are thrilled that they're getting this for absolutely free. Larsa's telling us that she's buzzing. She needs to work her OnlyFans to pay the bills. Well, Marisol tells Stephanie there are no safe spaces in the group. So we see a cutaway to a scene where Olivia Newton Steph is traipsing and skipping her way to Marisol's morning after rocker suite or whatever it's called. And truer words were never spoken, girl. You know, Marisol tells Stephanie that there are no safe spaces. And Stephanie says that she's explaining to Marisol that she was just hurt about them not wanting to go to Marbella and that she doesn't understand why it had to happen. And then Marisol basically admits that it was her decision. And then she invited Alexia along. And eventually they jump up and Marisol declares that it's a new start and the two mighty mice make up for now. Honestly, I didn't even get the note written down before we see, as the episode ends, that the next day, Stephanie is telling Adriana how she's going to go hard at Marisol because she knows exactly what kind of person she is and what she's all about. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see where things heat up. I think this was a good episode for purposes of seeing, I don't know, a different side of Steph. But honestly, it seems a little manufactured. We'll see. Considering what we just saw, we know it doesn't hold out for long, or hold up for long, I should say. But that was that for this episode. I'm going to let you guys go because there's not much more to talk about with regards to Housewives. But I'll be back later this week with all of the tea in Bravo world. We'll have some pop culture. We'll talk food and travel. And we will be here, as always, living on the verge.